Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Hello, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. This is episode 63, and I am smiling at the moment because I have a snoozing, snoring pup behind me. Scooby is in the spot he likes best, which is on the couch. He wakes me up at 5:30 in the morning, sometimes earlier, and gets his breakfast, and then he goes back down to snooze for most of the day because he's an old man. But he is my best friend and my best man, Scooby. The best. Aren't doggos the best? Gosh, I love them so much. I love all animals. They're really empathy creatures, empathy machines like we are. Us feely humans. So, today's episode 63. I chat with my friend from across the pond, Jem Hill, about mental health in the tech industry. Jem is a software tester, so she works in a field, in an industry that is mostly men. That may be the stereotype, but she indicated to me that it's mostly dudes. And she's done amazing work in bringing mental health awareness into her industry, and we talk a lot about that. And just very proud of Jem for being that, for taking that on herself. We also talk about the feeling that we're not good enough. Hello, that's me, possibly you too. Probably something we can all relate to. We talk about growing up too fast. Jem had an experience growing up where she felt like she had to take care of her siblings and had to kind of grow up too fast in that way, and that's hard on a kid. And we also talk about how it takes one person at a time to make a difference. That's it, just one person at a time. And what I mean by that is, let's say you interact with a friend or a family member or a stranger, and what is that interaction going to be like? Are you going to be vulnerable? Are you going to lead with your heart? Are you going to open your heart? Are you going to give that person space to be themselves, to maybe have a chance to look inward? And that's what I'm talking about. It just takes one person at a time, because we need to have these conversations around our feelies. We need to have conversations around our mental health, because we all struggle with something. We all are in the shit on this pale blue dot, sometimes feeling like we're alone, but we're not alone. We have each other, and it just takes one person at a time. So that's a beautiful thing that I love to think about for myself. Jem is certainly taking that on herself, and I love her for it. So you will enjoy this episode. Jem is a gem. Sorry, I had to do that. I am a dad. Not a dad, but a dad of Scooby, as I mentioned earlier. Any hoozles. Before we get to the episode, though, please, if you can, support the show by leaving ratings and reviews in iTunes and Google. It's an easy way. Takes a couple of minutes. Go over to iTunes, search for You, Me, Empathy, click on Write a Review, and leave me a 5-star review, or whatever star number that you think is worthy for your experience with this podcast. The more reviews we get, the more ear holes can listen to this show. And that's a good thing. We want to meet people. We want to connect with people. We want to get more people into this feely space, this feely cave with us, right? More feely humans in the world. That's what we need. Okay. Also, follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at YouMeEmpathy. We have a Facebook group. It's at facebook.com/groups/YouMeEmpathy. I also have a Patreon page. That's at patreon.com/YouMeEmpathy, where you can support the show on an ongoing basis if you'd like. No big deal. No fret, no pressure. I love you regardless. Okay, what else do I want to say? I guess I want to say this. Right now, I'm in a space where I am struggling a little bit with my depression again. The medication I've been on has, I don't know if it's starting to lose its power, or I need to up the dosage, or I need to find something new, which is all very overwhelming. I wrote a piece on my blog about it if you guys like to check that out. It's called Medication Anxiety. But that's where I'm at. I've been having low spots, and so I'm gonna dig into that and see what that's all about. See if I can find some reprieve in the future. And I guess I just wanted to give that little emotional check-in with you, and maybe you can do the same today with your friends or your family members. Or again, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at YouMeEmpathy. DM me. I'm open to talk and listen and all that good stuff. Okay, enough of me blathering on. This is episode 63. Please enjoy Mental Health in the Tech Industry with my buddy Jem Hill.
You and me, empathy, la 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 la. You, me, empathy, yeah. La la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I'm overjoyed to explore a smorgasbord of things, from anxiety to mental health and tech, with podcaster, tester, and dare I say, gem of a human being, Jem Hill. Hello, Jem.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm happy to have you. Thanks for being on You, Me, Empathy with me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to finally sit down and have a chat.
Yay. Are you sitting down or are you standing?
I am sitting down.
Yeah, me too. Okay, well, listeners, today on the show, Jem and I are going to explore a variety of things. Really get to know each other, have a conversation, talk about mental health and tech, and just get into Jem's story a bit. But before we do that, we always have an emotional check-in. How are you doing, Jem?
I'm actually doing really good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I've had a big 2018 in both good and bad ways, and I have been talking to my therapist, and I've decided to try going from weekly sessions to every other week sessions because I'm feeling good.
That's great. Yeah, what do you think has contributed to that feeling good?
I think so. I've made a lot of changes this year, and I've spent the past few months fully recovering and looking after myself and being kind to myself and all that good stuff. And I'm finally coming to a space where I've got that energy back that I've been missing because I've been dealing with all that stuff. And so, yeah, I'm finally feeling a little bit better, a little bit on top of the world, a little bit more like me, which is good.
That is good. That's great. It is amazing how, I think it takes some work. So kudos on getting to the place where you even understand what me is,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I think for a lot of us, we have a sort of discovery period in our lives where we're figuring out the me part. Like, what is me? What is my sort of MO? What is my sort of comfort zone? What am I about as a human? And so, good job. I mean, obviously that's always constantly changing thing, but like, it's good to recognize that, like, hey, I'm in a good place because this is who I am.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was talking to my therapist about like not everything has to be like a big thing that needs like picking apart and stuff. And if something is okay, then that can just be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what I'm trying to learn.
We as a society, especially here in the States, value or the language we use is always such extremes. It's like you have to be like, quote unquote, balls to the wall, like, like impressive, extreme, what have you, or it's like the opposite. And we don't value maybe the in-betweens as much, and I think we should.
Yeah, I think especially because I come from tech, there's this culture of like constantly improving, like checking over the processes and how the team work together to constantly improve. And we miss that a lot of the time, all the time, we are just good enough and just worthy of being okay.
Yeah, I love that sentiment, and I really want to explore that a bit later in the show. I wanted to just mention something that happened to me yesterday. I kind of on Friday I was planning out in my head a big day where I would, we were in a new house. There's a big backyard, and I love working in the yard. And so I was planning in my head, like, oh, these are the things that I'm going to accomplish tomorrow, tomorrow being yesterday. and it didn't work out that way. I was digging, in the yard. I was moving big boulders around, and my elbows were hurting, so I had to kind of stop. And I just didn't get done what I wanted to get done. And I think it's a good lesson for me, and maybe you or the listeners, is like, sometimes we plan a thing in our brains, and most often it's not going to go as according to plan. Sometimes it does, and that's a beautiful moment. But like, we also have to be kind to ourselves and patient and say, hey, we can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. And, just be content with, and I'm talking to myself now, be content with maybe getting a little bit of it done, and, be okay to pivoting as well. And I think that's important. So that was my sort of emotional check-in.
Yeah, no, I think things about like just like accepting what you've done and what you've not got done is kind of a big part, because again, we're always striving to do everything, especially if you're, so I'm a big planner as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just plan everything all the time, and then learning that life will kick you in the face sometimes, or you'll just get distracted or whatever, and it doesn't always happen, and you can't stick to your plans all the time, is kind of a big thing, I think.
It's a huge thing. I agree, because we all experience it, and it does open up the window for some kindness and some patience and some resiliency, something that we all need as humans, as we just try to sort of navigate the waters of life, which are unpredictable and very much out of our control. I think it's a good lesson that we all need to remind ourselves of. And I think something that you said, and maybe I'm extrapolating away from what you were maybe intending, but like what I heard you say in part was, our culture is sort of obsessed with like productivity, and sort of obsessed with, checking off boxes and getting things done. And I think moving away from that is probably healthy too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like striving towards improvement is obviously never a bad thing. And if there's something that you do that you like and you want to get better at it, that's totally fine. But we don't stop and think that we are good as we are right now and worthy of some happiness and love and all that kind of stuff. It's often there's like, when I can do this, then this will happen.
Yeah.
And it seems always like putting off, the putting off of good things because we need to do X first. And it's like, well, you could just do the good things now. That's fine. You are alive. Let's, the world can be quite tough and quite scary. Let's not mess about. Just believe you're worthy of love now. I mean, easier said than done. I talk the good talk, but that's what I kind of want to try and strive towards, I think.
Well, I that's beautifully said, and warms my heart to hear you say it. And you're right. We all talk the talk, but we have to, because it's self-talk. It's I know I do it. It's easier to talk about it than to actually accomplish it. But if if it becomes like a mantra in my life and I repeat it and it becomes part of my normal language, then it can get easier to make that happen and to follow through. I find
that's actually a really good point. Yeah.
Well, let's transition into maybe your sort of mental health origins. Could you give me a couple seminal moments of your mental health story, moments that speak to who you are as a person, who you are today?
Yeah. So, sorry, it's Bonfire Night tomorrow, which is a tradition on November the 5th in England and the UK, where we set off fireworks to commemorate someone trying to blow up our houses of government. So if you hear fireworks in the background, I apologise. But people don't know fireworks.
Remember the 5th of November?
Absolutely, that's the one.
Yeah.
But because that's a Monday and no one's going to be, the kids are in school and stuff, so they're going to do it on a Sunday. Didn't think about that when we booked it in, but anyway. So apologies if you hear fireworks in the background.
No worries.
So pivotal moments. The first one that comes to mind, because it was a massive moment in my life, was when I finally got diagnosed with anxiety. Because I don't have panic attacks. I tend to dissociate instead when I do get anxious. And so it took me 2 solid years of going to the doctors and talking to them before someone said, okay, maybe what you're going through isn't normal. I had doctors just saying that I just needed to learn to deal with life and being an adult and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of knowing myself enough to know, no, this is definitely not right, and being determined to get that kind of care for myself, looking back, seems like quite a big moment in my life.
That's great, and it's a big moment, and it's something all of us need to face at one point in our lives, because it is big, and it's hard to accept sometimes that we, whatever you want to call it, flaws. Flaws is not the right word, but we have these aspects of our character that make life sometimes a little difficult, and accepting those is a huge first step. So, I think it's a courageous first step on your part. How old were you at that time?
I was about 23, 24.
Okay.
At that time, and it was one of the first times I'd finished university. I was living with my partner, and I was very sort of fully independent for the first time in my life. Mm-hmm. I was out from under my parents' sort of crap, and it was kind of the first thing where I properly advocated for myself without any sort of overarching kind of thing.
Right.
So that was quite good. So that was the big one.
How did the anxiety, like, talk me through leading up to making the decision to go seek help? Like, how did it present in your life? Like, were there any sort of moments that were really especially maybe scary for you, eye-opening for you?
Yeah, I think so. I moved up to where I'm currently living now by myself. My partner was finishing university at the time, and that was when it really hit me, because I was like, new job, new place, didn't know anyone, had no one that I knew around me, all that kind of stuff. So that's when my anxiety really hit me hard. And that was actually when my partner was like, maybe you should try talking to someone, maybe, because I'm pretty sure this isn't normal. And I was like, yeah, okay, you do have a point. And that started the 2-year cycle. It would be a thing where I'd go to the doctors, talk to the doctors. I didn't have the language of anxiety. I didn't know anxiety was a thing you could be diagnosed with. So I wasn't really communicating as well as I could have been. They'd just throw a depression checklist at me, like, are you depressed? And I'm not depressed. I don't really suffer from depression. And then they go, well, you're not depressed, so there must be nothing wrong with you. And then yeah.
What language were you using to describe your state of being?
It was just things like, it looked like stereotypical depression, really. Getting out of bed without crying was a massive deal. Basic, self-care, looking after myself, making myself fit for public consumption, showering, feeding myself, all that stuff was hard. I couldn't articulate that it was because I was terrified rather than because it got to the point where I was just tired. Like, I was fighting my brain so much that I was just tired, but I wasn't making the connection of I'm tired because I'm scared. I was just tired. I couldn't navigate the fog in my brain enough to go, oh, actually, no, I'm just scared all the time.
Yeah. No, that's interesting and well put. Like, you were feeling the output of what you were experiencing, but you couldn't piece the puzzle pieces together to get there. Like, you were kind of experiencing the thing and you had to kind of almost reverse engineer to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. So it totally makes sense that they, were like, okay, maybe you've got depression. Yeah. But it was like, I'd go to the doctors every 3-6 months for 2 years, and it took that long. That's like 4, 5, 6 times going to the doctors in 2 years, going, look, there's definitely something wrong with me, for someone to finally go, okay, this is clearly a long-term thing. Let's refer you to a therapist and see what we can do.
And how was your anxiety impacting your day to day? I mean, obviously you said you were having, you're struggling getting out of bed, doing the showering, basically checking those like basic boxes. Like, in other ways, like, was it affecting your relationships, those sorts of things?
Oh, definitely. It was all I could do to keep working. Essentially, Mark, my partner, came up and joined me after like 6 months, and we got a flat together and all that kind of stuff. But I was just basically surviving. I was leaving the house and working. And the only reason I could get to work is because I was so terrified of not being able to make rent. So my anxiety about rent powered me through work. I came home, I sat on the sofa and just kind of melted into the sofa for a bit, and then the cycle continued. There was nothing else. Like, I could maybe clean and I would maybe do a bit of cooking, but the most like basic cooking is one of my joys. There is a lasagna waiting to go in the oven after the podcast is done, which I've made this afternoon. It's gonna be amazing. But I wasn't even doing that because I just didn't have the energy to do that. So I was a terrible partner and a terrible friend, and probably not a great employee either, to be honest with you, but I did the bare minimum I could to cling to being able to afford rent and food, and that was it, really.
And your partner at the time clearly saw that you were struggling and reached out and said, hey, you need help, which is great. That's a hard thing to do. Yeah,
no, he's pretty fantastic. It took some learning curves from him as well, because he used to do things like, just calm down.
Sure.
Which just enraged me so much, because that's not something, you know what I mean? But it's that thing like everyone, it totally makes sense. And now he's learned to, respond to my particular brand of anxiety and stuff like that. And this year, even when I started to wobble again, I was like, I think I need to talk to someone again. And he went, yeah, I think you do. I think you need to go back to therapy. I think if I can have those discussions with him about, this is what I think I should do, or this is what I'm feeling, which is quite nice. He's incredibly supportive.
That's lovely. Yeah, we need those people in our lives to have the language and to be open and willing to get there and to understand the language and how to handle someone who you love who is struggling, and it's hard. But if you have an open heart and you're willing to sort of learn and be patient in the process, we can all get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only imagine how hard it was for him when I didn't even have the words to describe what was wrong with me myself.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can't read someone's mind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. At least not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. So when you started going to see a therapist, it took 2 years to get diagnosed. Were you learning stuff about yourself during that process? Were you being helped in other ways? Obviously, clearly, it took some time to get to the point where you could put a name to what you had, but tell me about the therapeutic process for you and if it helped you at all during those 2 years, or maybe it didn't.
Yeah, so the 2 years that I got diagnosed, my work wasn't amazingly supportive. I worked in a pharmacy, and it was very, I had to rearrange time to go to a therapist. So I was sent to a cognitive behavioural therapist first, through the NHS, and she helped me massively. CBT works really well for me, and because I've been put on medication as well. So that's kind of, the medication gave me the energy to do CBT effectively. So it worked for me for quite a while, actually. But during the 2 years before I got that kind of help, work wasn't amazingly supportive. It was a minimum wage, kind of 5 day a week, 6 day a week job.
Yeah.
And there was no space for that kind of assistance or support, which is probably something like ironic considering it's a pharmacy. And I spent my time helping sick people, but I couldn't get the help I needed myself. Again, because I don't have panic attacks, because there's no overtly open way that my anxiety manifests itself, people didn't believe that this was affecting me in the way it was. Because it's rare for someone to say, I got diagnosed anxiety, but I've never had a panic attack. So
yeah. That's so hard. The whole people not believing you thing, you hear that a lot with people who have mental illness, who have anxiety, depression, bipolar, etc. I wonder where that comes from. Do you have any insights as to where the sort of like skepticism comes from in that?
I honestly have no idea. I'm wondering if the thing that comes to mind is people still don't, and certainly didn't back then. It's become a lot more often now. Is people don't talk about like their mental illness or ill health.
Yeah. Like
you see people who are really, really ill, or there are people who don't have an illness, and there's no shades of like I do day-to-day work. I'm a normal functioning human being with a mental illness. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're either in a hospital or unable to function in the society as it is right now.
Yeah.
Or they're perfectly healthy. Yeah, exactly. It's very back then, like a few years ago. Well, I'm 31 now, so it was a handful of years ago. It didn't seem like it was spoken about as openly, whereas now it's still not ideal, but you're more likely to get people who understand that you can have a mental illness and also be a quote unquote normal human being. Right.
Yeah. I think you're right. And it is getting better. I think that the skepticism, the not believing part is just ignorance. It's just a lack of education. As you said, like, I think that people think about mental illness, that term, in extremes. They think about maybe the mania of someone with bipolar disorder, or they think of the schizophrenic, or they think of the depressive who can't leave their bed at all. They think of these things in extremes, and I think that's those cases exist, certainly, and it's on a spectrum, but I think more conversation, more education, more people like yourself talking about it, and even talking about it in the workplace, like the better we will able to get to a place where we can have the broad spectrum of conversation around mental health, including and being inclusive of all cases, because they're all valid.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I speak a lot about my mental health and how I look after it and stuff. And other people come to me and go, speaking about my mental illness speaking about my anxiety makes my anxiety worse. And it's like, well, don't speak about it then if you don't want to. That's totally fine. Not wanting to speak about it, even in this culture where it's a bit more supportive, is totally as valid as wanting to shout it from the rooftops.
Right. Yeah. Obviously I'm coming from a place where like I built a sort of emotional grounding on hiding all that stuff and stuffing it down, and it tore me apart. And so I'm at a place in my life where I need to shout it from the rooftops. I need to get it out there because I know the power of that, and I know how people can hear that and relate to that. But yeah, you're right in that like we each have our own sort of valid journey in how we heal. I do think, however, the caveat there is that it does require acceptance and also, maybe some vulnerability that can be discomfort, uncomfortable at times. What is your experience with, let's talk a little bit about what your experience is with, or maybe I don't want to jump ahead that far actually. How does, after you got diagnosed with anxiety, tell me about that experience. Did you feel validated? Did you start, at that point, start talking about it more to people in your circles at work, or did it take you some time to do that?
So around about the same time I got fully diagnosed, I left the pharmacy to go to another job. That's my first job in tech. So there's a massive transition. I mostly felt validated when I got diagnosed. I'm a big I'm a big planner, and it was like, right, I know what's happening now. I know what's wrong with me. What can we do to deal with it? It was the not knowing that was absolutely killing me. It was
knowing's the worst.
Yeah. So knowing was just such an amazing boost to me. I was like, I know what's wrong with me. I can deal with it now. So I started dealing with it, or trying to deal with it anyway. I didn't really talk about it at work because, so the company, I left the pharmacy to go to a digital company, and that company went bankrupt in 6 months. So I didn't really have much time, to be honest with you, between onboarding and then trying to get a new job to talk about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't till the next proper job after that where I started to talk about it. I started to be fairly open about it. Started with the mental health awareness days, ease into it a bit. And if people came and wanted to talk to me one-on-one, mention it there. And that kind of gave me that boost, the fact that these were receptive, because I work in tech, I work with a load of developers. It is especially full of lots and lots of men who are engineers and don't really talk about feelings a lot of them. So it's just like, if I can feel comfortable talking in that environment, then I can feel comfortable talking in other environments maybe. So it's really my first big proper tech job that I've really felt comfortable talking about it and connecting with people about it.
And you are talking about it in the context of mental health awareness days and other days like that, or outside of that as well?
It started off just mental health awareness days. It was just in there because that was kind of safe, and it was expected that you talk a bit more about that.
Right.
And I felt that other people felt safe as well, because again, there's a nice framing around it. But once the first few of those had passed and people came to me and said, thank you for talking about it and stuff, I started talking about it like it was a normal thing, because it is a normal thing.
It is, yeah. That's great.
So I did, I still occasionally I do get people looking at me a bit weirdly when I say, what did you do this weekend? And Saturday I did this, Sunday was therapy, and then I did this. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. And sometimes I'll just double take when I just mention that I've went to therapy because I do most Sundays. But most people are just like, yeah, all right, okay, which is quite nice.
Now, are these mental health awareness days put on by your work, or are they more of like a sort of, national thing you're talking about?
They're a national thing.
Okay.
Companies like to do stuff with it, either to remind. So there are two broad ways. One is cynical and one is not cynical. The not cynical way is reminding employees of any sort of employee assistance programs that they have and kind of the ways that work can support them. The cynical way is they do none of that, but they want to put something on social media to say that they do mindfulness or something.
Sure.
But either way, it means that for most workplaces on mental health awareness, so it's national, there's a day in May, and then there's World Mental Health Day in October, and then there's a week somewhere that I can't remember the actual dates of. And so there's about at least 3 or 4 opportunities a year to talk about that stuff in the framework of a National Awareness Day.
Mm-hmm. And have you been, have you gotten any sort of feedback from your bosses about your sort of openness about your mental health on these days?
My current bosses, my current boss and the boss before that loved it. They love it. They think it's great that I'm willing and able to take on this kind of role of being the person who helps the department talk a bit more about mental health and about positivity and that kind of stuff. In my previous role, which was the first one where I started talking about it, they appreciated it, but there was no real feedback. It was just like, yeah, if you want, I don't really care. Whereas now my bosses are really supportive. And when I went back to therapy again this year, they were like, you don't have to worry about making the time off. It's just go do what you need to do. It's fine.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, yeah, I'm in a really supportive workplace now. So they're very happy to give me time at work time to do things, whether it's go do my own therapy or do things for the department or the wider company or that kind of stuff. So I'm in a really supportive place when it comes to talking about mental health now.
Oh, that's so good to hear. That warms my heart. Are you getting feedback from some of your peers, some of the, aforementioned stuff, everything down engineers?
Yeah. So a lot of people talk to me, ask me questions about the employee assistance program that we have. Have you heard about mental health first aiders and the mental health first aid program?
I haven't.
No, loads of people haven't. So there is an organisation called Mental Health First Aid, and they put on training for people to be mental health first aiders, like you would have just physical health first aiders. And it's a 2-day course where you learn about how to spot things like anxiety and depression and if someone might harm themselves or be dangerous to themselves, all the way up to things like things like psychosis and maybe symptoms of schizophrenia, if someone's got an eating disorder, if they're being abused, that kind of heavier lifting things.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a framework to approach them, to talk to them, how to talk to someone and how to not say the wrong thing and to be supportive and stuff, and how to signpost them to various resources. And my company puts on that training. So I'm a mental health first aider. So I wear a different coloured lanyard, which means anyone in the company can come talk to me and go, can I talk to you? I need some help. And people have come up to me and spoken to me a lot about various resources, resources within work, or just because they want someone to know what's going on in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a lot of feedback that way, a lot of good feedback. When it was in my old department, which was research and development, so lots of male engineers, I got a bit of wall in the kitchen with the 2 other mental health first aiders in our department, and we put up a positivity wall. So we had a load of sticky notes, and we put down things that made us happy on the wall.
Oh,
and everyone
love that.
and everyone got in on it. Like it had to be posted. The sticky notes had to be pulled down, and new ones had to be put up 3 or 4 times now.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's still going even though I've left the department. So it's that kind of thing of all right, they may not want to talk about their feelings, but they'll tell people what they like.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They'll think about things that are positive in their lives. And if that's all that I can do, that's so much, that's a goal.
Yeah.
That's done.
What a great program. Is that only UK based or is it worldwide? Do you know?
It's worldwide. It started in Australia, then it moved to Scotland, but now it's in something like 20 countries and 19 different languages.
Wow. Okay.
So it is global. So yeah, mental health first aid, if you Google it or whatever your search engine of choice is, you will find it. 2-day, fairly intense course, but if you can do it, or even better, if you can get your employers to pay it for you, it's highly worth it.
Now, what do you, working in tech, which is notoriously, maybe the stereotypically a lot of men, and the stereotype is that, men aren't that in touch or as in touch as women are in with their feelings. And then the tech world, especially here in the States, the stereotype is, or the cultural norms are of that sort of bro-y stodginess, the sort of hyper masculine, aggressive, competitive, all these things that I think run a bit counterintuitive to embracing our feelings and vulnerability and leading with our hearts. Like what are your goals, if you have any, in what you're doing now for, in being a mental health first aider and sort of being that point person? What's your hope?
It's a weird one, because obviously not everyone's going to be comfortable doing what I do and feeling how I feel.
Yeah.
So I think I just want people to feel a bit more comfortable talking about things. I think ideally, even if they never talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I just want it to be an environment where we can talk about things. We're not quite as bro-y, so the company I work for isn't quite as bro-y, so we don't have that kind of quite toxic kind of competitive environment. We're very sharing and open with our knowledge.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's lovely. So it's not too bad in that sense, but it just means that I've got a lot of stereotypical British men who find it really hard to talk about things that involve feelings. And my biggest fear, and this is like where my anxiety goes, is that the men in my department are at prime risk, like the prime age of men who will die by suicide. Like that statistic is in my head, where it's the biggest killer of men, like under like 60 or something. It's somewhere between 20 and 60 or something. Suicide's the biggest killer of men in the UK.
Wow.
All of them fit into that age range. All of them. And so I'm just like, I just want to make it a nice environment so we don't lose any of them. And that's quite an extreme kind of reaction, I know, and that's my anxiety talking. And if all that matters is they just feel a little more comfortable, then that's also fine. I don't know. I don't really have any goals. I just want to make it kind of nice and try and figure out which the best ways of get people a bit more engaged and just thinking about their mental health while they may be okay.
Yeah.
And not, because for me anyway, I didn't really think about mental health until I entirely hit the floor. And then I had to learn how to look after myself whilst trying to get better as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get people to think about it when they may be better or not hitting the floor ill, then maybe it'll be easier for them.
No, I think that's right. And I think that's incredibly valuable. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. It requires us to maybe impact, maybe it's just one person at a time. Maybe it allows one person in our circle to develop a word or two, or to claim some emotional insight that they didn't have before. It just takes one person at a time, and I think you're doing such stellar work in that, and such just good feely human work. So I commend you for doing that and being that point person. It's hard, and to think about the suicide statistics. Do you talk openly about the suicide stuff?
I have done previously.
Yeah.
I have pointed out that our department is full of men who in that age range and that kind of risk group, not in a big thing, but just to bosses and stuff, going, I want to do this, and I want to do this because of X, Y, and Z, and also because, this is slightly worrying. And my boss in my previous department, at least, was very much aware of that statistic as well. So we had an open discussion about the kind of stuff that we do and how we can keep an eye on people and all that kind of stuff. Because, yeah, it is one of those things that we all kind of know. And like working in tech, working in tech, it's just not always in my mind. That would be a bit weird and a bit dark. But I'm just aware of it, that I'm surrounded by men who maybe don't feel comfortable talking about their feelings, and the effect that can have. Because I'm much like you, I find it very hard to keep my feelings inside now. Now I realise what talking about them does for me. I'm very much like, out is better than in, or at least being able to choose to be out with your feelings if you want to be. And if people are feeling like they can't talk, then that is a worry.
It is a worry. It's a worry for me too, and it's the precise reason why You Me Empathy exists. Because the people that maybe have a hard time getting there, have a hard time accepting their feelings or identifying their feelings, or just knowing what to do in their mental health journey, like hearing other stories and hearing people like yourself, Jim, like talk about their own anxieties or depressions or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or anorexia, what have you, like hearing people's stories, and the more people talk about it, the better. I mean, just broad statement there, but I firmly believe that.
No, I totally agree. And I'm going to take a moment to thank you for doing this podcast. This podcast is lovely. I love it. And even the ones that I've not been able to listen to for various own self-care reasons, they've just all been, like, the show notes have all been lovely. And I hate that this is the case, but it is also so rare to hear someone who is at least will be perceived as male, if not identifies as male. I don't know your pronouns. Let's just assume either way. I don't assume either way. Talking about mental health, because somehow it feels easier as a woman sometimes to talk about it, because I'm expected to talk about feelings. Whereas I've got friends who are men who are going to start talking about their feelings or have started talking about their feelings, and they found it a lot harder to break that down because they're not expected to talk about feelings. So just thank you so much for the work you do. It just warms my heart every time a new podcast of yours comes on my little feed. It's like, oh.
Oh, well, I'm blushing now, and thank you for saying that. It's the expectations thing is always troubling for me, because it is easy for us humans, and I just identify as a human. I identify as whatever, but just a human is good for me, because that's what we all are. The expectations thing is so problematic, but I understand why we as humans develop them and develop notions, preconceptions that turn into misconceptions, because it's easier. It may be a little easier to approach maybe an unfamiliar situation or a foreign situation with a pre-developed framework that may be based on, not facts at all, or just what have you, cultural sort of stigmas or what have you. And I get why we develop those expectations, and we get to a place where, like you said, Jem, women are expected to talk about their feelings, men are not expected. Like, I hope we get to a place as a human species where those expectations are put aside to allow for more curiosity and critical thinking and just active listening in our relationships, because the expectations and these sort of preconceived notions are damaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like all things. It's really hard to make like broad statements, because some people will feel comfortable sliding into those expectations, but
yeah,
I think some people, maybe even the majority of people, don't. And so it's trying to find a way that works for the majority of people. I think that's just letting people do what they want, and the whole active thinking thing. Active thinking, active listening. Sorry, my mind just went off there for a little bit. It's fine.
Well, I think it could be that word, active thinking, active listening. I think they could be synonymous. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
So can you tell me a little bit about, I think you had said somewhere that you struggle sometimes with imposter syndrome. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you describe what that is for the listeners and how it presents for you?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is when you feel like you're an imposter. So at work, you feel like maybe you're not as good as you should be, or that you're absolutely going to get fired because you're not performing up to your usually self-imposed like levels of work production. Most of the time work is fine with your performance, but you're always convinced that you're not doing as good as you could be.
Yeah, I relate to that mightily.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I don't know, it comes up with a lot of beating myself up about things. So I am a software tester, which means I test software. I make sure that it works not just like functionally, but it's like accessible and secure, and maybe like people can use it and it's what people want. And so I do a lot of thinking about how things are going to be used. And sometimes I miss things because I'm human, and because it's not just my job to do all things. The idea is that I work in a team of developers and people, and we all think about all these things. But it's not too bad now that I'm working with another tester, so we've got each other. There's an extra sort of safety net. But when I was the only tester, if I missed something, that was basically the end of the world for a while. And it's not always the end of the world. It wasn't always, but occasionally, if my anxiety is just in the right spot, the world has ended.
Yeah.
And clearly I'm going to be escorted out of the building immediately.
Yeah, I could see why you'd get there. I mean, I've gone there before. It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, so I quite like my anxiety when it's under control. It's quite, it's there for a reason. I'm happy to have it there as long as it's not kicking me in the face too much. And my anxiety makes me good at my job. If I can listen to my anxiety and my anxiety is going, you really don't know everything about this piece of software, I think you need to do some more investigating. That's probably correct. My anxiety, I've got a good gut for when I've not investigated a piece of work completely. When my anxiety doesn't want me to finish testing something or exploring something because it is convinced that I've missed something because I'm a fool, that's the bad side of it. And so that's kind of how it presents as well, that kind of, you can't possibly finish this work because you're an idiot, as opposed to you've not finished this work because you're not fully comfortable and don't understand everything yet, because you've not discovered everything yet. Which I'm not sure how well I'm explaining this to someone who isn't, because it's really hard for me to talk about testing. I find it hard to put words to it. But yeah, there's a basic line there between good anxiety and crippling anxiety.
No, I think that makes sense. Makes sense to me. For me, like, I'm wondering if this, maybe some of this is for you, but for me, when I get to a place where I am feeling, unworthy, unloved, like my work doesn't matter, like, that I don't deserve to be here, that I don't deserve to be loved. Like, for me, those, and maybe that's coming from a different place from what you're describing, but for me, this is how I'm relating to it. That comes from a place of just deep insecurity. It comes from a place of feeling maybe unloved as a child, feeling not seen as a child, feeling not validated. Do you relate to any of that?
Strongly. I strongly relate to all of that. This stuff definitely started in childhood, and not feeling loved and not feeling allowed to be a child. Definitely. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Not feeling like you could be a child?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can do. So I'm the oldest of 4. I have a brother and 2 sisters. My brother was born when I was just before I turned 6. And so my mum was a single mum, and so she had to work and stuff. And so I babysat quite a bit. But then, so that was fine, whatever. I mean, have a younger brother now, that's totally fine. Babysitting, looking after, playing with this slightly smaller child, fine. She met my stepdad when we were 11. Then there was 2 of the children born in quick succession. And my stepdad was abusive. They're not together anymore. Was very abusive, not physically, but very emotionally. Kind of, I had to be perfect. I got the brunt of it as the oldest child, essentially, until my brother was old enough to get the brunt of it because he was a man and therefore threatening to our stepdad. Because not his son, but another man in the house, another man's son in the house. Very toxic, masculine, stereotypical. At that point, I became the person who essentially had to look after the children. My mum was just completely collapsed and subdued under this emotional abuse. So I had to look after my siblings. I was the one who was cooking for them and all this kind of stuff, just caring for them in a way, like making bottles of formula up for my little sisters and stuff like that. So from basically 11 onwards, I didn't really have any sort of life that was my own until I escaped to go to university at 18. And then, so this year I cut off contact with my family because I realised that there's no other way of me fully escape swooping in and saving the day when my mum couldn't. I was constantly, even though I've moved miles away and got my own career and partner and friends and life and house and all that kind of stuff, I would still have to swoop in and save the day there as well.
Mm.
And yeah.
What a heartbreaking, difficult position you were in at such a young age. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, not ideal, but it kind of made me who I am today. So,
and who you are is a wonderful human being who gives to others through your own experiences. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I wanted to find something good out of everything, so it seemed like a good way of doing it.
And tell me about your decision to cut off from your family.
So it's something that I've been thinking about since I was 14 on and off. Like, real talk, when I was a teenager, like, the reason I went to university was to escape. I didn't have I did science because I love science, but there was never any sort of grand career plan. It was, if I go to university, I can leave the house and I'll never have to move back in with my parents. I could be free. Mm-hmm. And there was a thing of like, I could just cut off my family, but I didn't for my siblings for the longest time because they were my siblings. I was the one looking after them. And so how could I abandon them like this? And then this year, it wasn't related to this, but my anxiety really started getting really bad again. And I went to a therapist, my first ever proper talking therapist that I was paying for myself and all this kind of stuff. And he was like, you don't actually have to look after your siblings forever, Have you considered not having to do that? And then my grandfather died. And I was really close to my grandfather. I moved in with him when I was like 16 to look after him after he'd had a heart attack because I am a carer, apparently.
You take on a lot.
Yeah. And so he passed away, and my mum, the first words out of my mum's mouth she rang me at 7 a.m. to say he passed overnight, then rang me in the evening and said, the first words out of her mouth were, "You need to come and help me because I don't know how to arrange a funeral."
Wow.
And I was like, what? No, absolutely not. No. This is what funeral directors are for. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, I think, of this. It was the beginning of me going, this is never going to change. There's never going to be a period of my life where I'm not going to be a carer for these people. And I kind of, working with my therapist, realized that it didn't have to be like that. I've done so much time, and I could have something that was just mine, maybe. Yeah,
you certainly deserve that. We all do. And, it's interesting, the sort of, I've talked to a lot of caretaker, mindset people on this show. I think I am one of them, the people with big hearts and find themselves, in a position like yourself, basically emotionally manipulated into taking on this role at an age when you shouldn't have, when you absolutely should not have, when it's such a heartbreaking thing when the parent role, which is the role that should be taking care of children, and when that is flipped, and you hear about this all the time, it's so heartbreaking. And it makes sense that you'd remove yourself from that. I think those are great self-care boundary choices. And I'm sure it's difficult. I'm sure it was a difficult decision. It's a loss, but it's also, at a certain point you have to say, look, I love myself. I care about myself too much to to keep this going, and damaging them in the process. Like you being in that cycle and being the quote unquote caretaker is ultimately exceptionally damaging to them.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I didn't want my siblings to think that they also had to stay there forever as well. Like, if they've seen the fact that I've escaped and I'm not there anymore and all this kind of stuff, maybe, hopefully, that will give them the impetus to do the same, and they can escape that life as well.
Have you talked to them about this?
Not since I cut off contact with my mum, because they don't have the same relationship with her that I have. By the time they were old enough to properly understand what was going on, my mum had come out of that kind of being very subdued and stood up for them in a way that she never stood up for me. So they love my mum. They think my mum is great. And I will always have that weird disconnect of they don't have the memories that I have. So I've spoken to them about some stuff, and they know some stuff, absolutely, but they will never have that same understanding that I will.
Man, I relate to this so much because if you've heard me talk on the show, I've talked about my relationship with my father and how I've cut off a relationship from him, but my siblings have not. And so it's this weird, it's exactly what you're describing. Do you feel any judgment or get over it or Jem, or in my case, known as being too emotional or sensitive? Like, do you get any of that from your siblings?
Not really. They so I've actually not really been talking to them either, because my mum, there was no way of talking to them without my mum knowing and without my mum being involved. The kind of relationship they have is very much kind of entwined. Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't talk to me. They're not going to talk to me without mum prompting them or without mum asking them to, and that kind of stuff, because they're very sort of, from the outside in, it looks like a really unhealthy relationship. But also, I don't know if that's just what a healthy relationship with parents looks like, and I've just never had one, so it just weirds me out a bit being that close to your mum. Like, I don't know what it is. All I know is that there was no way I knew there was no way I could talk to them without my mum finding out. It appears that they're not either able or willing to talk to me either.
Well, obviously I don't have all the facts and information, but you saying that you can't, even trying to talk to your siblings, your mom would find out, like that certainly sounds like they have an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me as well. And I think it was one born of necessity from their side. But I don't know. Families, man, they're hard. It's hard work.
It is hard work, but it is hard work. You do have to put in the effort, and I was actually talking to Jessica, my life partner, this week about this, about like families, and what at a certain point we have to make a decision about who we want in our lives, and also, keeping in mind the boundaries, keep it in mind, like, all the while, like the good self-care stuff. But I also think that there's this weird cultural thing where, you almost have to like be connected to your family. Family's blood, all these sort of, all this language that I think is problematic and shouldn't be the case. I think we need to address these cases case by case and human by human. And just because someone's your family member doesn't mean, you have to be in their lives. Like, if they're not bringing love into your life, and they're not, if they're just damaging, then I think it's healthy and safe and a good choice to cut them off.
Absolutely, yeah. No, strongly agree. Because I know so many people who have families that aren't related to them by blood directly, and whether it's like chosen families or adoption, that kind of stuff, it's like they've chosen to form a family, and therefore that kind of works just as well as a healthy blood family.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What so you're in a good place in therapy. What kind of you're doing CBT therapy, is that right?
I'm actually doing talking therapy now.
Talking therapy. Now, this is ignorant of me. I forget the difference between CBT and talk therapy.
So there's not a huge amount of difference in like real term. Well, in the sense of you sit down and you talk to someone. With CBT, the CBT I received anyway, it was very much it felt a bit more formalized. So you would sit down, you'd talk about a thing, and instead of having a conversation about so the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy is you have a feeling, and then you talk about or think about or write down the evidence for you having that feeling and the evidence against you having that feeling, and then you work out if that feeling is correct or rational or whatever. And that kind of, when I got into the practice of doing that, and I still do it to this day, for the big anxieties, it can kind of logic it out a little bit, and that's not too bad. Talking therapy for me feels a lot less formalized. It's just I'm having a conversation with someone who will occasionally go, let's delve into that a little bit. Tell me about this and tell me about that. And will also call me on my own crap a lot, which is appreciated.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's a bit more of a connection there, because I'm sitting in a room having a conversation rather than a bit more sort of formalized. Why do you feel this way? Why shouldn't you feel this way? Let's put that together.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That I recall that now. Yeah. I do talk therapy myself, and I enjoy it a lot. Tell me about your therapy journey, and like, I think you mentioned at some point, like the term therapy is a skill. Like, how have you, quote unquote, gotten better at therapy? Like, how has that been for you?
It's been really weird. I didn't even realize there's a blog post that I can send you a link to, written by someone from a tech company who wrote about therapy being a skill. And I read it like a month and a half ago. And it wasn't until then that I realized that therapy is a skill and you learn to get better at it. And for me, I think I get into the habit of kind of doing therapy on myself a little bit sometimes. So I walk to work. I have a 40-minute walk commute, which is lovely. And sometimes I'll find myself therapizing myself a little bit, like trying to dig into little bits and pieces. And for me, I find talking really helpful to get through things. And it's learning not to lie to myself. That was the biggest thing that came out of therapy. It's saying things out loud that are true, no matter how scary or ridiculous they are, and not lying to myself.
Can you give me an example of when you have lied to yourself?
A lot of it was around the idea that while my family was bad, I could cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the how I felt that the feeling guilty about abandoning my siblings, even though I wasn't really abandoning them, I'm looking after myself. But at the time, it felt like abandoning them. It's putting those words on. I feel guilty because I've abandoned them, because I should look after them. All the shoulds that we say to ourselves every single day, even though the word should doesn't belong in most of those sentences. There's very few things that we should do in life.
I agree.
There's things that we want to do or feel obligated to do.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
It's that kind of stuff. It's just examining the language that I'm using and figuring out why I'm using that language to myself, not necessarily talking to you, but the language that I do when I talk to myself and how I talk to myself and bringing that out. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned from therapy. And that's what I do to myself when I catch myself saying should. If I'm in a good place, I'll be like, should I? Should I do this? Or do I want to do it? Or do I feel obligated to?
I love that. That's a good little takeaway. I think I will start using, certainly, and I hope the listeners do too. Because you're right. Like, there's so many things that it's so easy to lie to ourselves. Yes. And we do it all the time, and voicing it, allows us to maybe see it a little clearer, that lie or that truth.
Yeah, exactly. And there was that moment for me when I sat down I decided on the Saturday that I wasn't good at that. I think I was going to stop talking to my family. And on the Sunday, I sat down in therapy because I have therapy on Sunday. Went, I'm not, I don't think I'm going to talk to my parents anymore. And then that sentence was the start of something massive that brought me to sing. But it was the fact that I had someone that I could say that sentence to out loud. And they just went, okay, let's talk about that. I think that was having someone who is just kind of outside of any other connection to you and has no real skin in the game other than being another human you're connecting to. Do you know what I mean? They're not related to you or friends with you or anything like that. They're just someone you can talk to.
Yeah. No, totally.
And so why would you lie to them? Because it doesn't matter. You can tell them anything.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But people still do.
Oh man, I still do. I catch myself sometimes going, no, hang on. This is what I actually want. What is the truth? Because it's hard to tell people the truth about yourself because it's being vulnerable is scary.
It is. I even find myself sometimes going into therapy and almost like pre-projecting how it's going to go. And I'm feeling maybe a little bit sensitive. I'm feeling maybe a little bit depressed that day or anxious, and I don't want any challenge. And so I'm like already like using language. I'm going into it expecting to use language that is maybe safe and and hiding the 100% pure truth. And yeah, I mean, I'm aware of it, but it still happens from time to time.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a protective, protective thing. You don't want to feel those things today for whatever reason, and that's an acceptable thing, right? To sometimes not feel things.
Yeah, I guess so.
I've done the same thing, and I've actually done the whole meta thing where I've gone to my therapist and gone, I don't want to talk about this today because this is what I'm feeling, and gone round the back way.
That's nice. That's great. I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think, I need to start, I'm like picking up tools from you now. I need to start, like, sometimes I think of my therapist as like, oh, she's my friend, but she's not my friend. She's a professional who I can and should tell everything to. And I think I get in my head sometimes where I think like, oh, she has to like me, or oh, this has to go well, or, bullshit like that. And I bet we all do that from time to time. Yeah.
No, I think that's fully understandable. And like I said, it's acceptable. It's weird. Therapy is for you at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
And if there are times when you don't feel like engaging, then that's totally fine. I'm not used to paying for a therapist because I've got NHS, so I had CBT, and I grew up quite poor, so I still have that kind of money anxiety. So if I'm paying for something, I'm going to wring everything out of it I can, just because my anxiety is like, you mustn't waste the money. Which is why I just tell my therapist everything. I'm like, right, I'm paying you for this, have all of these things.
No, that makes sense. I like that. What's your self-care routine like, Jim?
It's a bit in flux at the moment, if I'm honest with you. I'm still trying to figure out what this kind of new fully independent me wants to do.
Right.
I go to the gym. I have a wonderful body positive, people who identify as women only gym that I go to. So I've started going to that, and that's lovely. It's got like motivational quotes all over all the walls that people have written on it. There's a dog and a cat.
That sounds remarkable. I love that.
It's amazing. So I go there and I do classes there because it's wonderfully supportive. So I do that. I've gone out of the habit of doing yoga, but I used to do yoga like 3 times a week, something like that, because I find it quite mindful.
Yeah.
Eating properly is a big part of my self-care.
Okay.
Like, I remember when my mom was in hospital, and for all the issues I have with her, I was still really worried about her. And Mark's like, okay, we'll go out for food. And I really wanted a salad. So I ate a salad and it made me feel better because eating like vegetables makes me feel good. So eating that kind of mindfully and healthily and not just shoving like, I was going to say chips, fries for the Americans in my face, or any other potato goods. So it's that kind of stuff. It's the stuff that requires effort, as always. But my big two ones are eating in a way that's healthy for me and exercise, moving, being outside.
Do you, where you are, do you have easy access to fresh veggies and things?
It's not too bad, yeah. There's a lot of, so there is, well, it depends. So supermarkets obviously have fresh veg and stuff like that. If I go, there is a farmer's market, well, it's not a farmer's market, it's called a co-op, a cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's essentially a shop which like multiple farmers and producers of local things can put their stuff.
Yeah.
So I can get proper, cool. I have no idea. I've never seen one before I moved here, so I had no idea how popular they were. But yeah, so I've got one of them. It's about a 40-minute walk away, so occasionally just go and grab a load of nice, proper, still dirt on the potatoes and carrots, veg. But that's a bit far away. I've got supermarkets just like 15 minutes down the road. I can get like fresh fruit, veg, and just like. And my work, the canteen at work, does like has a salad bar. Salad bars are great, so I do have fairly good access. It's just I comfort eat a lot. I am a big emotional eater.
Sure.
So.
I love it tickles me, but I love, it's very charming, the abbreviation of vegetables, veg.
Yeah, veg.
I'm into that. Well, and I would argue, and I would put to you, a part of your self-care routine is also being a mental health first aider.
That's very true. That is very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of, who I am and what I feel good doing.
Absolutely. I know it is for me. I mean, this podcast is, as much as it is for other people, it's also very much essential to my own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, let's transition into our empathy heroes. This is the part of the podcast where the guest and I name an empathy hero. This could be someone in our lives. This could be an animal. This could be someone from the world of fiction. It could be an historical figure. Anyone that we think of. So, do you want me to name my empathy hero first, or do you want to go first, Jim?
Yes, because I've still not decided on mine. Sure.
So I took this submission for an empathy hero from Jessica Broughton. Hello, Jessica. Her empathy hero this week is the Doctor. She says, a being who cherishes all life and admonishes the use of force, deadly or otherwise. Choice, logic, reason, passion, silliness, and empathy rule the protagonists of the BBC series Doctor Who. Those lessons are routinely translated to its wide-eyed audience. The Doctor is a beacon of moral hope in these strange and often troubling times. And she has a quote here from the 11th Doctor. Quote, the way I see it, every life is a pile of good things and bad things. The good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa. The bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things or make them unimportant, end quote. So, I love that. I personally have not seen much of Doctor Who. My partner is a big fan, and she's seen a lot, but it's one of my cultural nerd sort of misses. I haven't seen that much, but I love this quote, and this may just get me back to trying to giving it another go. So thank you to Jessica for submitting that empathy hero this week. So now to you, Jem, empathy hero for you.
So first of all, that is a strong empathy hero, and the new Doctor Who is a woman this time around, is lovely.
Oh, that's good to
strongly
hear.
Agree with the empathy hero of the Doctor.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got so many. Like I'm surrounded by so many lovely people.
Beautiful.
It's so amazing. I feel so lucky that I've fallen into this amazing community of wonderfulness. So I have a friend called Tracy, and Tracy is lovely, and she's absolutely my empathy hero, because like I know that I could message her with anything. When I told her that I'd cut off contact with my mother, she replied, "I wish I had the ovaries to do that. Well done."
Love
and
it.
yeah, just we've not known each other for very long, but I feel such a connection with her feelings wise. So yeah,
I love that. And it's such, even in that text message back to you, that there's such love and support in that.
yeah, exactly. It's that kind of, we have that kind of friendship where there is that kind of love and connection, as well as the fun and the humor side of it as well.
Beautiful. Well, it's good. It's good to hear that you have those people in your lives, in your life. We need them. We absolutely need them. Well, Jem, let's tell the listeners where they can connect with you, where they can listen to your podcast, learn more about what you do, and all that loveliness.
Sure. So I am on Twitter at Gem_Hill, so GEM_HILL. I'm on Instagram with the same name. From there, I mean, so if you need to contact me, if you're not on Twitter and you want to check some stuff out, my mental health podcast is called Inner Pod. So it's inner as in INNER pod.co.uk. That's where I talk about feelings and get much like No One Does with You, Me Empathy, but a bit less. The focus isn't on empathy. So I feel that we're not direct competitors. There's enough empathy in the world for all of us. If you are interested in software testing, I have a podcast called Let's Talk About Tests, Baby. You can find that.
That's a fantastic name.
It's amazing, isn't it? My partner came up with it, so we shouldn't give him too much praise, but it's amazing. Yeah, or gemhill.co.uk is that links to my Patreon, but it's got links to wherever I am on the internet as well. And there'll be some email addresses there if you want to email me as well. My DMs on Twitter are also open. Don't make it weird, but I'm happy to have people come and chat to me because I love talking to people.
Well, lovely. And the listeners, those links are all in the show notes. So make sure to go follow Jem on Twitter and Instagram, and listen to her podcast, listen to her mental health podcast, listen to her sexy testing podcast. You should definitely do that. Well, Jem,